Alright, I'm making a video for the evolution test. We're going to go over it. I want you to know it is 11:47 and I'm just now starting this video because I've been grading your exams all evening. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do when you get back your multiple choice, get back a test and make corrections on the ones you missed. Discuss this with people at your table, get justifications. I want you to understand every multiple choice question that you missed. Make a list of questions you've got for me, and I can answer those when I get back on Wednesday. So we're going to pause the video, take about 20 minutes, and turn in justifications for the multiple choice and the math. Again, on the math, ask some friends. Some people got every single math question right, so ask somebody to help you. Okay, if you're done with the multiple choice, I want to take another second and talk about the math. There were 3 math questions on the test. In my 6th and 7th period class, Ben, Rebecca, and Heidi, all 3 got every math question right. So you 3 divvy those up and work one of them on the board so that everybody can see. And that was Ben, Heidi, and Rebecca. Okay, in 2nd and 3rd period, Jessica Bacon, Chase, and Lauren. Y'all divvy those up, and each of you work one on the board and explain it. In 4th and 5th period, Holly, Josh Nelson, and Casey. Y'all divvy those up and work one on the board. Again, make sure everyone understands those questions, because Hardy Weinberg and Chi-Square will both probably be on the AP test. So you'll pause the video and work those. Okay, well, if we're done there, we're going to start with the free response. The 2 short ones first. Okay, so the first short question asks for 2 historians other than Charles Darwin. Had some people write about Charles Darwin. 2 historians other than Charles Darwin that helped lead to his theory of natural selection. Let me tell you some things you did wrong first. The first thing, Alfred Wallace was nowhere in your notes. I didn't take that as an answer. You got Alfred Wallace from one of the multiple choice questions. You're not going to be able to do that on the AP test, so I didn't take that as an answer. Another one that a lot of you wrote about was Carolus Linnaeus. Carolus Linnaeus was the man who came up with the classification system. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. That didn't have anything to do with Darwin's theory of natural selection. So the people that did have something to do with Darwin's theory were Cuvier, he said catastrophism, Hutton, gradualism, Lyell, and Malthus. Okay, so in order to get these questions right, you had to say their name, their theory, and then explain it. So pause the video. Y'all check my grading because I did it pretty late. See what you think. Again, if you've got questions, write them down. All right, the next question, most people missed. Okay, INTER is where the same sex competes, but with like bright colors or song or dance. So for intersexual, I would have said this is where the same species, probably male, acts or sings or shows their peacock feathers for attention to attract the female. Okay, INTRA, sexual, is going to be fighting, aggression, fighting over women. Okay, so I'm about to tell you a way to remember this, because we obviously did not do it right the first time. Intrasexual, INTRA, think about that A as aggression. So they're fighting. A for aggression. Okay, so maybe that'll help you. INTRA is where they fight. I-N-T-E-R is where they dance or show their feathers. So pause the video, check those out. All right, and then the long one, I've only graded one of the long ones. You should probably see that. We're going to grade the other one in class together, but as far as your test goes, I just put one answer there. One for response there. Okay, so here was the question. Okay, so explain 3 of the following processes or phenomenons. So, okay, remember what that word right there is. Explain. I thought I could highlight. Maybe not. Okay, so right here, the word explain, 3 of them. I got something to say there. Explain. That means use a lot of sentences. Tell everything you know. 3. That means don't write about 4 of them. They're not going to grade the 4th one. Okay, so part B was for each of the ones that you chose in part A, discuss its impact on diversity of life. So really what they wanted right there was it increases or decreases diversity and how. So this rubric's pretty easy to look at, and it's pretty organized. You've got to be able to organize your writing. So stop and think. I need to choose 3 of these things. I need to define them. I need an example. A lot of you didn't include an example. You didn't read the question clearly. Okay, and then you also need to discuss its impact on diversity. Did it increase diversity or did it decrease diversity? Okay, so here's your rubric. You're going to need to pause the video right here. Check every one of them. Make sure that I gave you the points possible. You chose 3, and there were 4 points possible each, so a total of 12 points. You definitely should have gotten the defines. You definitely should have gotten an example. I was really lenient on those. You definitely should have gotten increase or decrease. The explanation points would have been harder to get. But at least, you were shooting for at least 6 out of 12. Okay, so pause the video, check those out. Alright, so one thing I was really proud of, most everybody put mutation is a change in DNA. That was most people's first sentence, and I'm glad you finally know that. Changes in DNA lead to evolution. Okay, an example of a mutation. Deletion, insertion, point mutation, or chromosomal abnormality. I took some more specific examples. If you put sickle cell, I took that. I did not take a tumor unless you had a good explanation for it. I didn't take cancer unless you had a good explanation for that. But I was pretty lenient there. Mutations increase DNA. Unless it kills the population, which would decrease it. But mutations generally increase DNA. And then a couple of you got these points. Mutations are going to change the protein. Change the genotype or phenotype. Okay, so pretty good on that one. Adaptive radiation. That's where the organisms move to different islands and their population adapts. And then they move to an island and they adapt. And they move to an island and they adapt. Okay, so I took that definition I just said as a point instead of multiple species from one ancestor. Okay, example. Most everybody wrote about the Galapagos Islands, either the finches or the turtles. Good job there. Adaptive radiation is going to be increasing because it makes a new species. So if you said, this is an example of allopatric speciation, I gave you that example. I gave you that point right there. Because speciation means new species, and it would be allopatric, so that was perfect. All right. Polyploidy, a lot of people wrote about this, and they didn't know what it was. Polyploidy is more than 2 chromosomes for each chromosome, so more than a pair. Haploid is 1 chromosome. Diploid is 2 chromosomes. Polyploidy would be more than 2. An example would be a strawberry or a banana. So they have more than 2 sets. Plants. That's going to increase diversity. Because think about it, it makes perfect sense. We have 2 sets of chromosomes and they separate independently. So that gives us variation. Well, if we had 3 for every chromosome and they separated individually, that'd give us way more variation. Okay, so new species, autoploidy and alloploidy. So I think one person read about that. I can't remember who now. Okay, bottleneck. A lot of people wrote about that and got it right. Drastic decrease in population. I pretty much took any example there. If you said bunnies or mosquitoes or whatever. So let's just say that a group of mosquitoes went through a monsoon and wiped out a lot of the mosquitoes. The mosquito population had to rebuild from that smaller gene pool. That would decrease variation. Okay, so bottleneck is going to be random, like the monsoon. The new gene pool is smaller and the population is smaller, so you may have gotten rid of all of one trait. Okay, and then this last one was hard, I thought. Growth of human population. You wanted to say that it was exponential, or it's near carrying capacity. So it's growing. I had maybe one person write about the example there with, I think Afghanistan was growing. Decrease. Okay, when I first read this, I disagreed with it. And I thought, the human population has a variation. But that's not what it's saying. It's saying that the other populations are decreasing in variation because of humans. Because humans are using their resources, variation is decreasing. Okay, so if you will, now that you're done looking at that one, write down any questions you have. I'll answer them tomorrow. We're going to go over the next one. So go ahead and flip to the next. For response, I did not grade this one. I'll make it a separate grade. You can grade your own. Get out a separate pen. And we'll grade this one together. Okay, so let's look at the question first. Discuss 2 mechanisms of speciation. Okay, so you're just going to discuss 2 of them. Explain 3 methods that were used to make these trees. So explain 3 methods that were used to make the trees. Describe a strength and a weakness for each method. So for each of those methods, describe a strength and a weakness. Okay, remember those bold words are going to get you points. Explain 3. For each, describe. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points for just part B. Okay. The 2 phylogenetic trees represent the relationship of the whales. All of the organisms shown have a pulley shape. It's an ankle bone, except for the whale. Okay, so right here, the whale doesn't have this ankle bone, so it would have started right here. Okay, well, if you look at this one, the whale doesn't have the ankle bone, so it would have just evolved and it would have been lost right there. So this on part C, it says describe a monophyletic group. That's just a one group. So right here, a whale is a monophyletic group. A camel is a monophyletic group. It's by itself. These are not monophyletic because there's 2 of them. Okay. Okay, so this is 3 questions. Describe a monophyletic group. That's one question. What is the closest relative to a whale? So on tree 1, the closest relative to the whale is the camel. And the point at which the pulley asparagus was lost or gained. So we already kind of drew that out. Okay, the second part of C. Based on the principles of parasomny, the genomic information in the table shown. Okay, you're going to identify which tree is best. And you're going to tell me why. Okay, so there's your character table. Here is your answers. So you're definitely going to need to pause the video and look at this for a second. Okay, so right here, mechanisms, you should have talked about allopatric and sympatric. So should have talked about allopatric and sympatric. Those would be 1 point each, 2 points total. Yeah, 2 points total on part A. So there it says it right there. Okay, part B. Explain 3 methods that have been used to investigate the phylogeny of organisms. Describe a strength or weakness for each method. Alright, so you get 3 points for all 3 of them. So 6 points possible. Alright, I just mislooked at this. You just do a strength or a weakness. So it's only, let's say for fossils, describe a strength or weakness. So for fossils, you could just describe the strength. Or you could just describe the weakness. Okay, so strength or weakness. So 6 points maximum right here. So pause the video and check these out. Okay, so here's your trees. Okay, for each tree, describe a monophyletic group, the closest relative. So you have 3 questions. Again, monophyletic group, closest relative, and where this ankle bone was lost or gained. Okay, or correctly defining a monophyletic group. So 1 point there. Okay, so the monophyletic group could have been anything except, so on tree A, it could have been, or tree 1, the monophyletic group could be anything but the Picarian pig. That's it. It could be any of those. Whale, camel, hippo, deer, cow. On 2, it could be camel, deer, or cow. I probably would have put camel and whale. Whale for number 1, camel for number 2. And I would have organized this really simple and said tree 1. Here's the monophyletic group. Here's the closest relative. And here's where the bone was lost or gained. Okay, so in order to get 1 point for the monophyletic group, hear me say this. In order to get 1 point for the monophyletic group, you had to get it correct on both trees. So that point's kind of hard to come by. Okay, on tree 1, and it's got to be clear. On tree 1, the camel was the closest relative. And on tree 2, the hippo was the closest relative. Okay, and then here's part C where it gained. This is stating that the gain of the pulley bone in tree 1 occurs between the whale and the camel, or that the loss of the bone occurs on the line to the whale, and the loss of the pulley. Okay, so on tree 2 occurs between the common ancestor of the hippo and the whale. So read that, make sure yours is right. So that's only worth 3 points total. 1, 2, 3. So you had to get both in all 3 cases. Okay, the next part. Tree 2 is best, and you had to justify. Okay, C is only worth 1 point. In order to get that 1 point, you had to get both tree 2 and the justification. So that point is really hard to get. Okay, the next thing you're going to do, pass in those tests. The next thing you're going to do in your lab book. If you don't have your lab book, you cannot go get it. Do it on a sheet of paper. That's your fault. You can work in pairs, but everyone needs to do it individually in their lab book. And it's pretty self-explanatory. You just follow the instructions. You're looking at the comparison of amino acids. So this is similar to the BLAST lab that you looked at online.